Hello and welcome to Witness Aid UK. Today I'm going to talk to you about 4 ways to leave the watchtower. Now some of you may have already left the watchtower and you may think this video has no relevance to you. But I would encourage you to keep watching because there are a couple of things that you should know. Those of you who are not Jehovah's Witnesses may be wondering why someone needs instructions on how to leave a club or organisation. Well, that's because when Jehovah's Witnesses leave the Watchtower organisation, they are usually shunned by their friends and family. So it's not an easy experience. It's not something that you can simply decide one day and do the next. It takes some thought. If you don't prepare, the exiting process can be very traumatic. The first way to leave the watchtower is to be expelled. It's not so much leaving, it's being thrown out. And this is called disfellowshipping. Disfellowshipping usually occurs because of unrepentant wrongdoing, and that could be anything from sexual misconduct or dishonesty right through to celebrating Christmas or a birthday or smoking a cigarette or two. The main point is that after a meeting with elders, if you don't show repentance, you will be expelled. And I would recommend that you don't go down that route. In the past, I believe there are some Jehovah's Witnesses who were looking for a way out and they almost tried to be disfellowshipped by being caught in some misconduct. It's almost as if they didn't have the strength or courage to make a decision to leave, so they contrived a way by which they would be expelled. But even though you might think you're manipulating things, it's still not a nice way to go. It's much better if you can go at a time of your own choosing. I have been approached recently and in the past, when I had my website in the late 1990s, by people who were disfellowshipped many years ago. And because they were ejected and rejected in a very short time, they didn't have time to prepare themselves for life outside. Many of them, even today, still believe the Watchtower teachings, but they just don't want to go back. And that has brought a lot of hurt and grief upon them, because still believing in Armageddon, they are constantly afraid of God's wrath, as if God is going to personally come after them and destroy them at Armageddon. So, try to avoid being disfellowshipped. It's much better if you do it to them and don't let them do it to you. The second formal way to leave the watchtower is by disassociating yourself. That means that you make a verbal statement in front of 2 witnesses, or you write a letter to the congregation saying that you no longer wish to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, in the past, many people have written very, very lengthy letters explaining the decision to leave. And I often wonder how valuable that really is. Because you know what? I don't think your letter is going to be read. It's going to be filed in the bin. The only thing the elders are interested in is your declaration of disassociation and your signature. And I would be very surprised indeed if the rest of the letter is read. I know it's tempting to write something in the hope that it will move someone to action and to help them to awake and see the light. But I think you're really wasting your time, to be quite frank. There was one person recently who wrote their disassociation letter on the back of a photocopy of evidence that the Watchtower had been part of the United Nations organisation as a non-governmental organisation. And again, it will probably end up in the file, but I don't think people are going to read it, really. Now, as you know, once you have been disfellowshipped, or you have disassociated yourself formally, an announcement will be made from the platform at the Kingdom Hall, and a statement will be read out that you have disassociated yourself and you no longer wish to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. There are other ways to disassociate yourself, as you probably know. If you align yourself with an organisation which the witnesses regard as opposing Jehovah and his organisation, or the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses, then that would be grounds also for disassociation. For example, let's suppose you join the army or a political organisation. Well, the Watchtower has no authority to forbid its members to join the armed forces, or to join a political party, or to vote. But they get around this very cleverly by saying that you have disassociated yourself from the organisation by participating in an action which is contrary to the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses. The third way to leave the Watchtower is to simply drift away. And this is the option that many people take when they don't want to cause a fuss or harm to their families. Because if you have a family in the Watchtower and you're disassociated or you're disfellowshipped, your family and all your relatives who are Jehovah's Witnesses will have nothing more to do with you. So grandchildren and grandparents will be separated. Even parents and children in some cases. Cousins, uncles and aunts, brothers and sisters will all be separated because of this cruel and unbiblical teaching of the Watchtower. So some people take the option of just quietly drifting away in the hope that no one will notice them if they don't attend the meetings anymore. There is a problem with that though. In my own case, for example, I had a mother and sister who were still Jehovah's Witnesses, and I wanted to spare them the problem of seeing their brother and son disfellowshipped. So I just quietly drifted away. But because I had contact with Jehovah's Witnesses from time to time, just in the street or in shops, or occasionally they would come to my house for a toilet stop if they were out going door to door, things were said. And these things got back to the congregation. And that led to a phone call one day when two elders tried to set me up on the phone and make me disfellowship myself or disassociate myself by telephone. So it happened quite unexpectedly. One Saturday morning, an elder phoned me who hadn't spoken to me for, well, about 3 years actually. And he was very chatty and asked me how I was. And he tried to make a conference call with a second elder. But the connection failed. And that is what eventually led to the judicial committees that I attended voluntarily so that I could get information for my website, which was active at the time. I wanted to show people what really happened behind the doors of a secret judicial committee meeting. And you can see those transcripts of those meetings on my blog, which is at witnessaid.blogspot.com. Look for Tom and Jerry, the Three Stooges, and the rude, the bad, and the ugly. So let's suppose that you've tried to drift away quietly. Some people even go to the extent of moving house, or even moving to another city, or even another state or country, just so that they can have no further contact with the witnesses. But the problem is, Jehovah's Witnesses are everywhere, really, in the Western world, and you will eventually bump into them again. And you know what the grapevine's like. If you happen to have a conversation with Jehovah's Witnesses and they find out where you came from and they notice that you're doing something which they consider bad, then word will get back to your former congregation and action may be taken against you, even in your absence, if there are witnesses to the alleged offence. So drifting away is an option, but there is one thing I would definitely do if you're in that situation. Prepare a brief disassociation letter, so that if suddenly things take an unpleasant turn and you are forced into a position of meeting with elders who come round for a chat at Christmas time, or pop in to see you, just to see how you're doing, because we're concerned about you. It's good to have your disassociation letter ready, so that you can preempt any invitation to a judicial meeting. The fourth way to leave the watchtower is one that you may not have realised. The fourth way describes people who are stuck in the watchtower because their relatives and friends are held, in effect, as hostages to the watchtower. So some of you today will be in the situation where you want to leave the watchtower, but you're wondering how to cope with the problem of your family and friends who would shun you when you leave. And I would certainly recommend that you preserve your family and your marriage so that when you come out, you can come out together if possible. So, although you're not able to leave the Watchtower organisation immediately, you have already left, in effect, mentally and emotionally. You have no further love or interest in the organisation because of some of the doctrines to which you've had your eyes opened and some of the policies which you've heard about. So, in your situation, what should you do? Well, the first thing to realise is that while someone is holding your friends and family hostage, you have absolutely no obligation to them whatsoever. If you have discovered, quite correctly, that the Watchtower has been lying to its followers for over 100 years, and its changing doctrines have no Bible basis, if you found out all these things as a result of doing some research of your own, or reading the Bible itself, then your allegiance to the Watchtower and your baptism is invalid, because it was all done under false pretenses, really. It was all done under deception. So the first thing you could do is stop supporting the Watchtower financially. And I don't mean just contributions. I'm talking about using your car for field service and taking people to the meetings in your car, using it in effect as a taxi service. Now, if you want a way to justify your sudden change, just talk to your insurance company and ask them how they would feel about you using your car for business purposes when it's actually insured for private and pleasure purposes. Ask your insurance company what they think about using your car as a taxi to take people to meetings of a printing company which is posing as a religion. Another way that you can withhold money is by refusing to give your time in Kingdom Hall cleaning, or in decorating, or in building Kingdom Halls, anything which furthers the interests, particularly the financial interests of the Watchtower Society. Another way that you can withdraw your services, so to speak, is to stop attending and supporting meetings. And if you're a woman, especially a young woman, there are many excuses that young ladies can make for failing to attend meetings. There are premenstrual headaches, post-menstrual headaches, and so on. You get my drift, I'm sure. And if you have children, well, you know, children are always getting sick and having temperatures, and they need someone to stay at home with them, don't they? So again, there are many ways in which you can avoid attending meetings and avoid supporting the Watchtower, even though you are trapped inside for the present. As for field service, you want to keep up a brave front and appear to be doing all the right things. So, you should certainly be singing the kingdom songs loudly. And you can also put in a field service report. This does not mean, however, that you actually go out in field service as much as you say you're doing. Now, if you think this is dishonest, well, let me tell you this. When I was a pioneer, aged 19, I used to spend 100 hours going door to door every month. And some months I didn't make my hours because I was honest about recording them. And I was embarrassed about that. But you know what? Recently, I've been watching a few videos online, and I've been hearing how people cheat on their hours. It's very simple. The pioneers all seem to do it, so I would recommend that you do the same. All you're really doing is just stretching a point. Take everything very literally. The rule used to be that you count time from the first door knock or the first person you speak to until the last? Well, what you do is you walk straight out your door, talk to someone, give them a leaflet, walk for a couple of hours to the field service meeting, do some shopping on the way, chat to your neighbours as you go, and when you get to the field service arrangement, there is no need to hang around for any serious length of time, because I'm sure you have some important calls to make somewhere near the shopping mall. So it's important for you to keep up appearances. Continue putting in a field service report, but make adjustments to your hours. I'm sure there are other things that you could do, which are perfectly legal, by the way, and I would recommend that you do that. Fight from the inside against the Watchtower organisation, which is holding your family and friends hostage. Meanwhile, during the time that you're waiting to get out, you can be spending your time preparing. And that's very important for all of you. There are many Jehovah's Witnesses on the outside who have managed to leave, but they are seriously damaged emotionally and mentally. And this is quite normal for a person who has left a cult. But if you look at my other videos, you will see that I recommend some books which might be helpful in bringing you out of the Watchtower. It's very easy to jump from the Watchtower frying pan into the fire of some wacky Christian religion, or deciding that you're suddenly going to become an atheist or something else. And there are many people in that situation just now that I'm finding as I speak to them on Facebook or in JW forums. So start reading, continue looking at videos, read your Bible if you want to be a Christian, and start reading more widely. You don't have to study the Watchtower unless perhaps you're in a family situation. All you need to do is have a few lines on the Watchtower before you attend the meeting, and it looks as if it's been studied. You don't need to spend an hour or so going over it before the meeting. Remember, you don't want to know that stuff anymore. If you're very lucky, you might find one day that your husband or wife thinks the same way that you do. And if you carefully discuss with them, you may be able to persuade them that it's time to get out and make a new life. As more and more revelations are made about the Watchtower and its conduct, and the cover-ups that are happening, where elders are destroying important documents to cover up criminality in some cases, and this really is happening, by the way, people will become more disgusted by the policies and doctrines and behaviour of the Watchtower organisation and its leaders. So if you're patient and you keep a low profile while appearing to be a good Jehovah's Witness, then it is quite possible that your partner in your marriage may one day express doubts, which you can then gently discuss with your spouse. Then you can make a decision together about what you'll do regarding your family and friends who are still in the Watchtower. Another thing that you might be doing while you're stuck inside the Watchtower is to start cultivating friendships outside, with people at work, with your neighbours. You can go on to XJW websites and XJW groups. If you do that, remember to use an alias. Don't use your real name, because there are many people who are active Jehovah's Witnesses who look at those sites and who look at my videos also. So by all means, leave a comment after you've watched this video, or if you make friends on Facebook, but do it under an assumed name, and don't post any photographs. There is one other class of person I should mention, and that is the person who doesn't want to leave. They're perfectly happy to live in a cult. And you know, there are some people who probably couldn't function outside without having someone tell them what to do and tell them how to live their lives. They would rather live a lie, believing that they're going to live forever, even though they have grey hair and wrinkles, and that they see their health is failing, and yet they're hoping beyond hope. People of my generation who lived through 1975, they are sick at the heart, living and waiting and hoping that Armageddon will come and that they will not have to face old age, infirmity and death. But I can tell you that any time that you can get out of the watchtower is a good time. Now is the time. Doesn't matter what age you are. Don't sit there thinking, well, you know, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 70. What's the point in going to so much trouble? Well, it's rather like fitness and health. It's never too late in life to start eating your greens and doing some exercise and thinking about your diet and your weight and your heart and your blood pressure. You can make enormous improvements to your health, even late in life. And the same thing applies to freeing your mind and getting out of the watchtower. Even if you just get out of the watchtower and you're dead a month later through some unfortunate circumstance, you have had a month where you have freed your mind, you have made a decision to control your life and make decisions and to be free for the very first time perhaps. So don't be afraid to make the decision, just do your preparation and you'll find that it's possible. On the outside, there are many troubled XJWs, but there are also many XJWs like me and others who are willing to help you, to talk to you, to listen to you, because we have talked to talk and walked to walk. We know where you're coming from. And the reason I did this is not for financial gain, it's not for ego or to have many followers after me. I don't want followers. I want you to learn independence, to educate yourself about the watchtower and to prepare your own life and your own way ahead. But there are people outside who are willing to hold your hand and help you until you are able to do that yourself. So have courage. Remember the 4 ways, and the most important thing is to have your disassociation letter ready. And that applies particularly if you are staying inside the watchtower, because you never know when things will change. You never know when circumstances will suddenly catch up on you. You might get fed up when the elders come round to visit to see why you're not attending the meetings so often. You might find some gem of truth which is so shocking that you just can't keep your mouth shut about it. So prepare your disassociation letter. Cover your tracks, stay anonymous, and have hope, because things will work out in the end. Thanks for listening.